Welcome to Model Steam Engines and Boilers Part 27. More details about setting model steam engine valve timing, as I receive a lot of questions on this subject. The job is not difficult if you follow the standard procedures as shown in this compilation video. These edited extracts are from my series Model Steam Engines for Beginners. If you require more information, then please watch the entire series. In the first section of this video, I'm going to show setting the valve timing on a non-reversing type of model steam engine. Later in this video there is an extract from part 4 of Model Steam Engines for Beginners where I show how to set the valve timing on a steam engine fitted with reversing valve gear. When setting the valves, always rotate the engine in one direction only. Never go backwards, because any backlash in the chain will not give you a true reading when you're looking at the valves in the valve chest. The first thing to do is set the eccentric. The eccentric needs to have the highest point of the eccentric set at 90 degrees to the crank pin. The relationship between the eccentric and the crank pin sets the direction of rotation for the crankshaft. With the highest point of the eccentric set to 90 degrees from the crank pin, this is in a good enough position to be able to set the valve accurately. When setting the valve, make sure that it uncovers the ports at the top and the bottom equally. This is very important, it has to be in the middle. Don't worry if it wobbles around a little. As I mentioned earlier, the slide valve has to have some float. Once you have the valve in the correct position, rotate the crankshaft. Adjust the slide valve position so that the top inlet port is just cracked open very slightly as the piston gets to top dead centre. And similarly, do it with the lower port. Adjust the slide valve position so that the bottom inlet port is just cracked open as the piston reaches the bottom dead centre. Adjust the valve as necessary to get this to happen. Then replace the steam chest cover and connect a compressed air supply to the engine. Don't use too much pressure, you just need the engine to run nice and slowly so you can see what's happening. Now you need to adjust the eccentric slightly to achieve the type of admission that you require for the steam engine application. Next we need to connect the compressor to the engine, but with not much pressure, just enough to hear the admission at each end of the stroke. You should be able to see what I'm doing here without me speaking about it, so I'd like to say one or two things about steam engines and admission. You do not necessarily want the steam to enter the cylinder when the piston is at top or bottom dead centre at each end. What you need to do is have the steam enter slightly before, which cushions the piston and pushes it back down the cylinder in the opposite direction. When live steam is admitted to the cylinder, it immediately starts to cool, and as it cools it expands, and this expansion gives an extra kick to the piston and really bounces it down the cylinder. You don't get this effect with compressed air. That's why steam engines always run much better on live steam, provided they're built right and set up right in the first place. The video is showing me setting up this engine until I get the beats to be exactly where I want them. Yes, you can do this by opening the valve chest and timing the valves and this, that and the other, but I always do it by feel and by ear. You will have noticed that I keep stopping the engine and turning the crankshaft by hand via the flywheel with a little bit of air going in, and you can hear exactly when the steam's been admitted to the cylinder. If you foul up and turn it the wrong way, just start again. Remember, always go back to the starting point, and the highest lobe of the eccentric needs to be at 90 degrees to the crank pin. This is what we want, and the engine will run better, make less mechanical noise and be much more powerful if you do it this way. In the first video, Model Steam Engines for Beginners, I showed how to set the valve timing on a non-reversing steam engine. This time we're looking at a reversing steam engine. This is called the reversing valve gear, and it comprises two eccentrics, the third one here is for a water pump, and an expansion link. And it allows you to slide between the two eccentrics. The eccentrics are set, one to give forward and one to give reverse. And it's very clever, fiendishly clever, and very simple. But it's not quite so simple when you come to set it up. The first thing to do is to drill holes in the eccentric straps. You must do this if you have the grub screws in the eccentric sheaves. Doing it any other way is terrible. Every time you need to make an adjustment, the eccentric strap has to come off, and it's a real pain. Trust me, I've done it many times. The idea is to get the valve to move equally between the two ports, both in forward and in reverse. On this engine, which is a Stuart 5A, everything is nice and large so you can see what you're doing. It's all down to getting the valve setting. And here you see me putting the engine into forward and reverse and having a listen to the exhaust beats. It's not good policy to do this when the engine's running under steam or air pressure, banging it into reverse. I'm just doing it to illustrate how to do it. Here are the eccentrics moving in forward and reverse direction. Setting the timing on a reversing steam engine is pretty similar to how I described it in the first video. Where it gets complicated is if you have a twin cylinder engine. This one's a single cylinder engine. When I set up valve timing on a twin cylinder engine, I would normally remove the inlet manifold and supply compressed air to just one cylinder at a time. One final point, even if you've followed the drawing to the letter, sometimes you have to limit the amount of travel on the reversing lever, and this will stop any knocking and stop you from straining the expansion link. Stay safe, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my main Steam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.